to the December 7th, 2015 Troy City Council meeting. We are pleased this evening to have Reverend Dr. Chuck Sundquist, representative of the First United Methodist Church, with us this evening to lead us in the invocation. And then we have a special treat with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll do the introduction after our invocation. But please rise for our invocation.
God of all nations, grant that we say and do as leaders and followers in our community that we respect and affirm that all we who live and work in Troy are children of your hand. We would also pray for those who, wherever they live, do not feel the warmth of love and acceptance. Help us to be your hands and feet, offering service where there is need and support where depression and sorrow are an everyday burden. May this be our prayer and our practice. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the Schroeder Elementary School students and members of the Pretty Shields from the Three Fires Longhouse. So if you would come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, girls. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Perfect. Thank you, girls. Perfect job. Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. If we could have the roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Councilmember Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Campbell?
Here.
Councilmember Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pennington?
Here. All present. Our first order of business this evening is certificates of recognition and special presentations. And we have a treat. C1 is Fred Barnard book presentation to the City Council. And it says that Cindy Stewart from the Community Affairs is going to introduce you, but I don't think you need any introduction, Mr. Barnard.
I know most of you, not all, but thank you.
Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Cindy, for introducing me. I just wanted to make sure that this history in Troy was documented. You know, it was about 60 years ago this week when I was 13 years old that Troy became a city. And I think the election was in December sometime, and so it kind of tells you how old I am. But luckily, living most of my life in Troy and seeing the house, you know, I moved to Troy Historic Village was very meaningful for me. Johnson Niles, when he first built the house, he is the person who named Troy Troy. So I put that in the book, and he wanted to call it Hastings, and the state said, no, you can't use that, it's already used. You have to call, because he came from New York, it became Troy. Luckily, I was around 12 years old when they had the little secret meeting when my dad was township supervisor, and they had a little meeting in our living room and dining room of the house, and made Troy the petitions to start the process to make Troy a city, which would have been a year later. So luckily I have that, and I tried to document this. A little bit of my family history in here too, but, and my mother, on my mother's side, I'm the 6th generation to have lived in Troy. The rest of them are all over at Crooks Road Cemetery, so. Thank you very much for letting me present this book.
Well, thank you for doing that, Fred, and thank you for giving each of us a book that was personalized to each of us. It'll be a treasure for all of us.
Thanks, and I hope
you want to talk about the proceeds for the book?
The proceeds of the book go to the Historical Village. So, you know, if you want to buy more copies, you can certainly do that at the Historic Village and the Museum Gift Shop. Lorraine will be glad to sell you as many as you need. So, but, and the book cost me $25 for me to print. It's not for sale for $25, it's for sale for $19.95, and the proceeds go to the Historic Village, because I priced it more reasonable that way, figuring it's more important that I have the book out and everybody have a copy and have that history documented, why that house, because if you look at it, it's just a house. I lived there and I had chickens and cows and sheep and stuff, to me it was home, but I look at it now in a totally different perspective than I did when I was growing up in that house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. And the name of the book again is The House with Two Tales. And
T-A-L-E-S.
T-A-L-E-S, yeah. I'm looking forward to reading it. And thanks for doing that, and thanks for the donations to the Historical Society. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Next is C2. We've all been looking forward to our audit presentation, and I see Tom Darling, our Financial Services Director, is anxiously and smiling.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to go over the results of the 2015 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the year ended June 30th, 2015. But before we do, I'd like to take this opportunity to do some celebration and recognize some special people that are on your team that have helped us to achieve some national awards for our financial reporting and transparency. Maggie? So I'm trying to get them all up here at the same time. You can see
Make sure
it takes
you-
more than
Mike.
one to do this. Saharish?
Tom?
Yeah. Yes.
Just make sure you use the microphone, okay, please?
Yep, I'm trying to get them
I got it.
all around here if we can. And Cindy? So I'm trying to expedite things by trying to get it all at once. But if I can, let's see. If I can get you two to hold that. And if I can get this, let me try over here to hold this. And Cindy, I can do this. So this is the way we're going to work it. First of all, we're going to talk about the distinguished budget presentation. This is our plan. This is saying, what are we going to do? Then we're going to work our way to the CAFR, say, did we do what we said we're going to do? And then we're going to work our way to the PAFR from Cindy, which is taking all that accounting information and putting it into a format that the rest of us can understand. So let's go ahead and talk about the Distinguished Budget presentation real quick. The Distinguished Budget Award reflects the commitment of the City Council and staff to meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting. In order to receive the Budget Award, the city had to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. These guidelines are designed to assess how well the city's budget serves as A, a policy document, B, a financial plan, C, an operating guide, and finally, a communication device. Nationally, there's only about 1,400 of these awards out there. So that's the Distinguished Budget presentation. Next is the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Again, I've got Lisa Burnham, I've got Kathy Giroux, I've got Barb Lousy, I've got Renee Hazen, I've got Lori Thayer, Kathy Kostopoulos, and Anita Halprin here to receive this award. The award is for the 2014 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or the CAFR. The CAFR has been judged by an impartial panel from across the nation to meet the highest standards of the program, including demonstrating the constructive spirit of full disclosure, transparency, and the ability to clearly communicate its financial story in a mode of potential users and user groups to read the CAFR. This year marks the 18th consecutive year that we've received this award. And finally, obviously everybody knows Cindy Stewart, has the PAFR Award, or the Popular Annual Financial Report. The award is for outstanding achievement in popular annual financial reporting. It's a prestigious national award recognizing conformance with the highest standards for preparation of state and local governmental popular reports. In order to receive the award for outstanding achievement, the governmental unit must have published a popular annual financial report whose contents conform to program standards of creativity, presentation, understandability, and reader appeal. The governmental unit must also receive the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This marks the 16th consecutive year that the city has received this prestigious award. As far as I know, in the state of Michigan, there's only about 8 entities that have received all 3 awards. 3 are counties, 1's a community college, and 4 are cities. So out of 630 cities and villages and townships, you're in the 99.36 percentile. Because we believe in doing government the best, and it's these type of things that demonstrate fiscal stewardship, transparency, and long-term financial planning and accountability that helps us achieve the goal of along with maintaining our AAA bond rating. Finally, although we've only recognized a few, it is a team effort by all city staff to bring this together along with the support of the mayor and city council. So again, thank you and congratulations on your award.
Thank you, Tom. On behalf of the City Council, thank you. We appreciate all the hard work. You're the ones that make us look good. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, so with, no further ado, let's dive into the comprehensive financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2015. First, let's go over the table of contents and briefly go how this 178-page document is segregated. First of all, you'll see on page 1 is the introductory section. The introductory section really serves as an executive summary. It gives details of the organization. It gives a narrative of the financial results at the fund level. And it's a great place to start if you're just looking for a quick overview, or really serves as a great basis for a more in-depth analysis. On page 17 starts the financial section. Inside the financial section, you'll have a couple different types of reports. One is the governmental-wide financial reports, and it really looks at the organization as a whole. It's a full accrual basis of accounting, and again, it's looking at us as a whole unit, which would include all of our capital assets, long-term debt. It's looking at our economic basis, and we'll talk a little bit about that more in a minute. You'll also find your fund-level financial statements, and this is the fund level is really the general fund, the special revenue funds, really how we budget and we manage the organization on a day-to-day basis. Also in the financial section, you have some RSI, or required supplemental information, which talks about pension, retiree health, and our volunteer fire incentive programs. And it also will have some combining statements of individual kind of non-major type funds that we have. Finally, we had this, next is the statistical section, which starts on page 137. Now, a lot of times this is in the back, doesn't get a lot of look, but there's a lot of information in there, including 10-year trend information, revenue and debt capacity, demographics of the city, and operating information. Finally, the final section in your CAFR is the single audit section, which starts on page 167. Because we do get grants, federal award grants, of course they all come with strings, right? And they want to know, are your internal controls in place? Are you spending in compliance with the grant? So with this section, we have to have special audit requirements, special procedures that our auditors perform to make sure that we have the right internal controls and the right systems in place for compliance with those federal grants. So next, to give us an idea of our internal controls and financial reporting, and if we're doing things the way we should be, I'd like to, if I could, Mr. Mayor, bring up Mr. Nate Balderman. He is a principal of governmental assurance services at our independent accounting firm of Raymond.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm just going to take a few minutes to kind of explain what our process was and what our involvement was. Tom will do a great job of explaining what the actual results were, but I'm here to explain the results of our audit. In our audit, as a part of our audit, what we're doing is our primary objective is to come in, look at the financial statements, and be able to give you an opinion on those financial statements so that you can rely on the information. That's really the objective of an audit. Tom talked about the internal controls. That is not our primary objective in an audit. We do not give an opinion on those internal controls, but we do give a report on those because of the type of audit that we're giving and the requirements of the auditing standards. If things come to our attention, we're required to report that information to you. I'm pleased to report that in our audit opinion, we did give what is called an unmodified opinion. That would be a clean opinion. The terminology sometimes can be confusing, but it is considered to be a clean opinion, which means that you can rely on that information. There's a lot that goes into that. It doesn't give you absolute assurance on the financial statements. We're not looking at it every transaction, but it does give you that reasonable assurance that you can rely on that information. He was also talking about the single audit section, and because of the amount of federal awards that you spend, more than $500,000 during the current fiscal year, but because of that, we go through a risk assessment process and determine which programs we're going to look at that can go back and forth from year to year. But this year we did look at the programs related to the transit center, and we also had an unmodified opinion on compliance for that. In the same way, we look at internal controls over those areas as well, and there were no findings related to that. So in summary, you had an unmodified opinion both on the financial statements and on your single audit, and you had no findings. So very good year, and really what you're looking for from your finance department. To be commended.
Thank you, appreciate it. It's always great for us to hear.
Right. Thank you, Nate. All right, let's go ahead and move forward. Basically, I'm taking this 178-page document and trying to encapsulate and point out the salient points on the next few slides if I can. Okay, so we talked about the financial section that started on page 17, and the first statements that you have on there are what they call the governmental-wide statements. The focus, again, as I mentioned, was the city as a whole, includes all the funds of the city with the exception of fiduciary funds, because they're not really our funds, right? We're holding them in trust for basically our retirees. It uses a full accrual basis of counting, which means that you're going to have things in there that aren't spendable. You're going to have capital assets in there. You're going to have debt in there. It's basically like a business type, full accrual type report. Again, the idea is to give you an idea of what is your economic strength. What's the economic ability of the city to provide services in the future? Okay? And as I said, the end result is what they call the net position. It is not necessarily spendable resources, and we'll see in a moment what makes some of that up, but an indication of economic health of the city. So let's go ahead and look at the governmental-wide net position. At June 30, 2015, our net economic position was around $451 million. Again, that includes capital assets, that includes spendable resources, that includes restricted assets. But let's, and we'll look at that in a minute, but let's see what is the story over time. We're looking at this over 5 years, okay? And as we see, there's from 2011 forward, there is an increase in our net position. What does that mean? Well, that's telling me that we're not spending all of our money just in operation. We're investing back into the city's infrastructure, back into our ability to provide services, whether it being streets and new sewer lines and new water lines and those type of things, that we're not degrading our economic position. We're investing back. What should be noted is between the 2013 and 2014 year, as you can see, 2014 says it's restated. Well, what does that mean? Well, the city, as required under Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement 68, is required to report if the city has a net asset or net liability of what it owes or has excess of in a retirement system, in our pension systems, okay? It's not the pension system itself. It's saying, as a city, are we overfunded owing to the pension system, or are we underfunded? Do we owe to the pension system? In this case, when we adopt a new pronouncement like that, we always basically restate the beginning net position.
Well, the beginning net position is 2014's ending net position, of course. And so that's why you see this jump in 2013 from $420 million to $452 million. $23 million of that was a net pension asset of the city for both its pension, the net amount of its pension system and the voluntary fire incentive program. Okay? So that explains that big jump. So that's kind of the new norm, okay? So based off that, then we evaluate 2015. As you can see, we're maintaining that pretty much that same level at the end of 15. So hopefully that explains why we've got that big jump there. Questions on that? Okay, let's go forward then. Let's go ahead then and let's break down that $451 million of economic strength, or net position, if you will. Again, as I said, most of it's in capital assets. At 2015, we had $298 million basically of capital assets that made up that net position amount. Of that, $127 million was unrestricted net assets, which is receivables. Again, there's investments in there. And $24 or $25 million was restricted net assets. So if we add that all up, we get to $451 million. Now, what should be noted on this then is, okay, as we explained about GASB 68, how does that affect this makeup of it? Again, as we see in 2013, our unrestricted net assets were $105 million. Remember, you see that? And then in 2014, we restated that to go up to $140 million. Again, that's primarily from GASB 68, and that $23 million of pension assets. Now let's consider what happens between 2014 and 2015. In 2014, our unrestricted net assets, again in the green there, was $140 million. It went down in 2015 to $127 million. In other words, we spent about $13 million, right? But let's look and see what we spent that on. If you look at our capital assets in red, our capital assets went from $287 million up to $298 million. That's what we did with it. We didn't spend it on operations. We reinvested that in basically into our infrastructure and our capital or economic ability to provide services. Okay. Let's look at our governmental activities. These are the services that we provide that aren't directly related to program fees. In other words, this is our general government. As you can see, public safety, public works, doesn't include water and service because those are charges for services, right? These are the ones that are really supported primarily through non-program specific revenues. Again, our biggest one on there is the cost of public safety of about $35.7 million. Of that, police is about $22 million of it, or the majority of it. As you can see, it costs us about $80.4 million to provide these core services of the city. Now, some of these services we provide, we're able to generate program revenues, whether it be through grants. We get some grant assistance. Some we charge for services. The police department charges for services to other neighboring communities, providing services to them. Somerset Mall. So some of these services are able to generate some of their own revenues to support their level, and that's what you see in the green is the program revenues of 26.9, if you added that up, to help cover the $80.4 million of expenses, right, to provide these services. The idea is, this is trying to show you what your non-program specific revenues, i.e. taxes and our revenue sharing, what they're meant for, right? They're meant to fill in that void to provide the level of service in these programs. Okay?
Tom, what's that last figure, the interest on, what's that interest?
Long-term debt.
Oh, okay.
And I can't charge somebody for interest on long-term debt. So its program revenue is zero, and that's a cost of our long-term debt, the interest part. Okay? Okay, next in your financial statements, we're going to go to the fund level. And this is the focus on near-term inflows and outflows, basically spendable resources. How much resources do we have that we can allocate when we go through the budgeting process? We recognize revenues not only when we earn them, but are they available to appropriate? The basis on budgeting, again, is the way that we manage on a day-to-day basis and the way that we adopt the budget at the end of the day. So let's go ahead and look at the general fund, which is obviously your major fund. at the fund level. And in 2015, we had basically $51.7 million of revenues. This is taxes, charges for services, fines and forfeitures, all the components that make that up, and we're going to drill down this in a minute. Which we did a little better than budget, which we're happy to say, about 2% better than budget than what we expected. And that's better than what we were doing. If you can see back in the 2009, 10, 11, we weren't making budget. And you can see the big decline that the recession had on us of basically resetting the norm was for us. And from there, it's been pretty steady, and it's going to be a gradual climb up. So let's break down some of these revenues for you and what makes that up. Clearly, our biggest part of our revenues for the general fund is property tax. That's 54% of the revenues we generate. Another 12% we get is from intergovernmental, which is basically our state shared revenue, and then another 16%, as you can see in green, is our charges for services. So if we add those up, that's about 82% of our revenue sources for the general fund. Okay? So let's go ahead and dig a little deeper, and let's see what they've been doing over the years. Let's start with the green, the arch line, which is our tax revenues. And we started with a top line back in 2008 around $36.7 million. And that dropped down to a low point of in 2013 of about $29.6 million. As you can see, we've been pretty steady since 2012, hovering around, that $29 to $30 million mark. And that's going to be, pretty much a long, steady stream to bring that back up. That's not going to jump up anything dramatically through the future. Even though we see a lot of new construction out there, we still are starting to level out in reductions in both our commercial and industrial tax base. But that's starting to level out, but that has been declining. Along with basically inherent restrictions through Proposal A and Headley of how much tax revenues can go up overall anyway. So we got a couple things that mitigate basically any dramatic increases in the future as far as the tax revenue base. Let's go ahead and talk about our charges for services, which is in the red. And you can see from 2014 we had about 7.8 to 2015 we got about $8.8 million in revenue, and that's an area that we're trying to work on. Primarily, the increase in 15 was really related to engineering fees and building permit revenues. And I think if we put on there, kind of focusing on the building permit revenues, we have not increased our fees for permits since 1997. So draw from that what you will. We're certainly keeping costs down. I don't know too many businesses that haven't looked at basically the rate structure since 1997 to see if there's areas in there that we need to concern ourselves with during the budgeting process. Okay. Oh, and then finally, in blue is the intergovernmental, the state shared revenue, and that's about $6.9 million. Although we've gotten a bump compared 2013 and 2014, about $300,000, we're still a ways away from the 2006, levels of about $7.6 million. So again, the state suffered some issues from the recession and lowered what they were giving to us, and it's starting to come back slowly. So hopefully we'll have some better results in the future. Let's talk about expenditures now. General fund had expenditures and outsources of $53.3 million to our budget of $58.1 million. So we came down about we were about $5.5 million under budget, which is good. Again, we can only operate within the realms that council appropriates, right? It's unlawful to spend more than what you tell us that we can spend. So it's a good thing we're staying within inside those parameters that you have set. Okay, so again, we see here from the highs of 2007, we had about $63 million of expenditures. This came down significantly to 2012. 2015, again, it was $53.3 million, but we have to understand $5.3 million of that were transfers to capital, right? We designed during our budget process to spend down some fund balance, because overall, if we look at this, we reduced fund balance by about $3 million, and I'll get to that in a second. But let's look at what our expenditures are really made up. 58% is related to public safety. Again, of public safety, 41% is police, 12% is fire, building inspections about 5%, but we're certainly heavy on the public safety side of it, and that's where most of the majority of our funding goes. Now, this is one of my favorite slides. Again, we've been talking about history, right? Financial statements, audits, anyway, they're history. What have you done, right? But I'd like to take a second just to put it in relation to our budget, our 3-year budget, and how does that fit in, and are we on track and on target to what we were expecting? Now, as you know, we have in the lines, we have a unassigned fund balance policy between 20 to 30% of our annual expenditures. And so we know that we're a little high on that, and do we have a plan to put that in place? And I'm happy to show that in 2015, you can see, in 2015, on the top 2 lines shows revenues and expenditures. We can see that expenditures were in excess of revenues by about $3 million. So we used about $3 million in fund balance for 2015 as designed. Keep in mind, we budgeted $5.3 million in transfers, right? How does that relate then to our 2016 budget? In our 2016 budget, we've budgeted to use fund balance to, again, bring that unassigned down even further, so that based on our 3-year budget, we should be in our 20 to 30% range as per our policy states. So we have a plan in place, and it looks like from our current results, we're on track to meeting that. Okay, let's go and change pace from the general fund to our capital projects fund, which is another major fund of the city. Again, in 2015, we had $19.9 million of expenditures and generated $19.2 million of revenues to cover those expenditures. The capital project fund's a little bit different than an operating fund, right? It's not an operating thing where you say, okay, we want a certain percentage of our operations between 30% of fund base. It really depends on what is the way that we fund our capital needs. Now, Troy has a long history of being debt adverse. We don't have a lot of debt out there compared to a lot of communities, and ones that we do, we have actually a tax for, right, that the voters voted for, a proposal A, B, and C. So the issue of how much fund balance should we have really is related to our ability to project out our capital needs and where we're going to need to be as we go to the future. So if we look to this $19.9 million, in tax revenues, we only get about $6.5 million a year. That's it. So how do I go from $6.5 million of a tax capture to provide capital projects to be able to spend $19.9 million? And that's really through grants. We're able to use a lot of our capital projects to leverage grants, so we had about $4 million in grant revenue. That's part of that $19.9 million. But we also, again, use transfers from other funds, $5.3 million from the general fund. We also had transfers from both our major streets and our local street funding to come up with basically the resources to do that type of capital work. This is a fund in reality that I look at closely and we really need to monitor. I mean, if we took that, we go from 2000, we got a 5-year analysis here, right, from 2011. If we took that back to 2009, that'd be about, whoops, I gotta go to the next slide, there we go. This is the fund balance. We've got about $13.8 million in fund balance for the capital project fund. So we spent a little bit, right? But we're hanging around that $14 million mark. It is up from 11 and 13, but again, 11, 12, and 13, and quite honestly, from 2010 through 2013, we have steadily been spending down that capital projects fund balance. If you took it back to 2009, that'd be about $22 million. So you can see we've been consistent. We've had needs. We've got needs, right? And so we've been appropriating funds to address those needs, but also to leverage as much grant funding and other type of funding that we can use to do that. But again, going forward, that's one that we're going to have to look at closely and monitor. Okay, let's go ahead and look at enterprise funds. Now these are funds, right, where the charges for services are there to match the cost of providing that service. And the first one is the water. And as you can see, if we look at this, let's look at the green, which is our revenue source. We can see that we're downtrending from 16 to 15 to 14, and 2016 is going to be the same thing. We're losing revenue through sales volume. Now, we've increased some rates. We're trying, to increase the rates as much as kind of I guess as our costs go, but not quite as much. Because if you look at our costs in red, they're continuing to climb. And that's because we're using a variable cost, right? How much water does a resident use, and charge them based on the rate that we establish to cover this fixed cost. Because they changed our cost nature from Detroit Water Sewer, now it's going to be the Great Lakes Water Authority, right? Their formula for charging the city is not so much variable anymore. Now it's more fixed. So I got to sell this volume, right, at the rates we establish, right, to generate the revenues to cover those costs. And it doesn't look like we're quite there yet. So, but it's something that we got to look at it when we come up at the next budgeting cycle. Okay, so let's look at the net position of the water fund. Again, we said, we lost some position in our unrestricted net position, which is the red, right? We went from 20 down to 18. We're at about 15.6 now. But did we use that all in operations? And the answer to that is no. As you can see, we lost unrestricted from 18.5 down to 15.6. We used about $3 million, but it wasn't all in operations, because if we look at the green, we invested, right, back into our infrastructure about $2 million of that. So we went from 82.2 million up to 84.1 million. So at least it's not all going to operations. We are using some to invest back in the capital. It's the same story with the sewer fund. Again, we have a variable rate, and your rate for sewer is based on how much did you use for water. Our volumes for water is down, so our volume for sewer is down, but yet the cost, again, is a fixed cost nature. So it's very much the same story as water. It's a volume-based industry to try and keep our rates stable, right? If we can't, then we have to adjust rates to try and make up for that difference. As you can see, when we're looking at the sewer funds net position, you can see that we've actually been increasing our unrestricted. As you see, in 2011, we had 27.7 million. So our unrestricted, or available spendable resources, has gone up to 33 million. So we've been banking some dollars. At the same time, if you look at the green, our investment in capital assets has been decreasing, right? This is the exact opposite story, right? Our assets have been, we haven't really done a lot of maintenance, and through depreciation, the value of those assets have decreased. Now, with that being said, obviously, we've got the funds. We've been saving up the funds, right? And we're going to see in 2016 a big push in purchases of capital assets, especially through the Evergreen Farmington type project. That's about $5-6 million project, I believe, as it stands. So we're going to see a little switch around in 2016. Finally, we're going to talk about enterprise funds. I just want to point out Sanctuary Lake. As you can see, in 2012 was a great year. I wish I could redo that year every year. We didn't have winter, if you can remember. And so I think we had rounds in every month, which was great. But our average is about, 1.3 to 1.4 million a year in revenues. We are getting more and more maintenance costs. As you can see, our costs are going up to about 1.4 million. So again, we're not making a profit, if you will, or I guess we're not having any operating income. Profit's probably a bad word. Operating income to cover our non-operating expenses. And I guess this is kind of where the rubber hits the road here. Obviously, we've got debt out there on the golf course, right? And part of that debt is interest expense, which is a non-operating expense. So the idea is we want to generate funds, right, from operating the golf course, right, to pay for at least the interest, right, on the debt related to it. So as you can see, we had a loss in 2011. Again, I'd like to mirror 2012 if I could. We generated about $100,000, but our expense for interest was in 2015 was about $300,000. So again, if I can't bring up it looks like the income from operations, I'm trying to bring down the debt service, right? And we did. We refinanced the debt back in 2012 to at least bring that down some, but there is work to do at Sanctuary Lake, I guess, is the message that I'm sending you today. And again, it's a weather-driven industry. And so every sunny day that's a good day for Sanctuary. Finally, I'd like to talk about our trust funds again. Our pension system, we're 114% funded. We've certainly exercised our fiduciary responsibility, and the people on that board have done a great job of making sure that we're keeping our promise for our employees' retirement system. Our retiree health care system is 59, almost 60% funded. Again, yes, there's work to be done here, but we must understand we didn't even start funding this, nor did any government really, till 2006. So we've come a long way in a short amount of period of time. There's a lot of communities that haven't funded at all. So we're in great position. I like where we're at as far as going forward and getting this completely funded going into the future. And then finally, our volunteer fire incentive program, as you know, we're unable to invest the funds in that as we normally would in our retirement and healthcare fund because we're limited by Public Act 20. Because it wasn't a trust, it was really an asset of the city, right? In other words, I don't invest city funds, right, in equities and I'm limited to basically U.S. government securities and municipalities, AAA commercial paper, very low risk, low return type things. As you know, we adopted the OI Trust recently for the VFIP, and we're looking at some modifications because we want to make sure that was in accordance with some IRS regulations and didn't have any unintended consequences to our volunteers when it comes to that. So we're looking forward, though, to getting that all cleared up and maybe to be able to invest those in more long-term equitable type platforms. Get that up. Finally, again, the statistical section, as I said, has trend information in their revenue and debt capacity. Demographics are very interesting to take a look at. And the operating information, how many permits did we issue? How many, from a performance standpoint, there's a lot of that type of information that's to me, is very interesting. And then finally, we do plan on submitting this for the prestigious Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the next fiscal year. So wish us luck, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions from council? Councilman Campbell.
No, I just want, next time you should do this where you get a little bit more excited about it. Okay? You're kind of down tonight, Joe. No, great job, Tom.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think we're going to be in business for another year or two, so that always makes me smile.
Any other questions for Tom?
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you. Make the presentation readable for us. It's appreciated. Thank you. And once again, thank you to all the employees for the great job you do. Next on the agenda is a public hearing. We have one public hearing this evening, and that is a Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, 2016 application. And Cindy Stewart, our Community Affairs Director, will introduce the public hearing.
Good evening,
Good
Mayor,
evening.
City Council. It's that time of year again where we have to apply for our Community Development Block Grant money. And this year, they are telling us to work with $140,123, and we have to apply with eligible CDBG projects and present it to Oakland County, who sends it all to HUD for their action plan. And this year, we have 3 projects that we can spend the money on. The first is to remove the architectural barriers by improving 12 sidewalk ramps at Wilshire and Big Beaver and Troy Center and Big Beaver to be compliant with ADA requirements. And that'll be to do truncated domes in the crosswalks. That would be $75,586 for that one. Our second one, we are allowed to spend 30% of our funds for public services, so we will continue the home chore program. Right now, I checked before this meeting, and we are servicing 93 seniors, low-income seniors or persons with disabilities, and that is the lawn mowing in the spring and summer and fall with a spring cleanup and a fall cleanup, and we rake their leaves. And in the winter, we will get ready to plow their sidewalks and their driveways. That will be $42,037. And our third project, we have an eligible area in Section 25, so we will have the funds, $22,500, to plant 50 trees within the right-of-ways in that qualified area of the city. So we hope that those are our recommendations, and that City Council will approve that, and we will send off our application, which will be due by the end of this week.
Thank you. Any questions for Cindy before I open the public hearing? Thank you, Cindy. I will now open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this item this evening. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, return it to the table for a resolution. Mayor Pro Tem Pennington.
I would like to move E1, the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG 2016 application as printed.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Pennington and supported by Councilwoman Abraham that we approve E1, the Community Development Block Grant application 2016. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pennington.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. I don't see that anyone has signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents or businesses. There are no postponed items this evening, so we will move to regular business. I-1 is board and committee appointments. There are no appointments from the mayor position or city council this evening, so we will move to I-2. I have one mayoral nomination, or no, I have more than that. I'll start with the first. I would like to nominate Barbara Knight for the Downtown Development Authority term that expires 9/30/2019.
Support.
Moved by the chair and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Pennington that we appoint Barbara Knight to the DDA board for the term that expires 9/30/2019. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes, and thanks again to Barbara Knight for volunteering her time for the city. Next, I would like to nominate Michael Hudson, Philip Sanzica, and John Tagle back to the Planning Commission for the term that expires 12/31/2018. Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Campbell that we appoint Michael Hudson, Philip Sanzica, John Tagle to the Planning Commission for the terms that expire 12/31/2018. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion passes, and thanks again to the Planning Commission members for wanting to be reappointed to their positions. There are no city council nominations this evening. I know Mayor Pro Tem Pennington is working hard on filling those vacancies. There is no closed session request tonight, so I-4 is a revision to the 2016 City Council meeting schedule, and Cindy Stewart, once again, will introduce this item.
Thank Thank you, Mayor. When we brought forward the 2016 council dates, we were unaware that Troy Youth Assistance does their annual, and this will be their 43rd annual, Youth Recognition Awards that night. So and I know the mayor and city council always attend that. So we'd like to move your budget study session from Wednesday, the 20th of April, to Thursday, the 21st of April.
Thank you. Any questions for Cindy from the... Somebody like to move that resolution forward? Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move I-4, a revision to the 2016 City Council meeting schedule as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Henderson and supported by Councilwoman Abraham that we approve I-4, the revision to the 2016 City Council meeting schedule as printed. What did I say?
Abraham. You called me Councilwoman.
Oh, I thought she... I swear she said it.
But she heard it, so it's okay.
Okay. You'll correct that, Ms. Dixon?
Yep, you're all set.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that?
Should do it.
The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Must be my cold that my right ear is blocked or something. Next is I-5, the Standard Purchasing Resolution 8 Best Value Award for the architectural/engineering services for Fire Station Number 4. I see Fire Chief Dave Roberts moving forward along with Mary Beth Mertz, our Purchasing Manager, to introduce this item. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. Fire Station Number 4, located on Maple Road east of John R., was originally built in 1968. The station was renovated in 1988 to include an additional apparatus bay and a small day room addition. Since then, the building has experienced some foundation settling, which has led to water leaks and some structural deterioration. This is the only fire station that we have that has or does not have drive-through apparatus bays. So meaning whenever the fire trucks come back from a call, they have to be backed into the station as opposed to coming around the back and driving through. The size of the bays and the overhead doors increase the likelihood for damage to the trucks in the building when they're backed in. In February of 2013, a needs assessment was done to determine the likelihood for building a new fire station on the existing property. The study returned that it was needed to purchase additional property to build a new station and keep the current station operational during the construction. And in March of 2014, as some of you may recall, council members and staff toured Station 4 as part of the council staff retreat that year, and you were able to witness firsthand some of the inadequacies of the current facility. So the replacement of Fire Station 4 was identified as one of council's and city's budget priorities. And in March of this year, the parcel adjacent to Station 4 immediately to the east was purchased, and as of last week, that property has been cleared and graded.
Thank you.
Okay, then in August, the purchasing department facilitated a comprehensive request for proposal to select an architectural engineering services firm for the design and construction of the new fire station. The selection process included a pre-proposal meeting, and also a 5-member committee was a part of the evaluation process. Based on evaluation criteria, interviews, and reference checks, the evaluation committee unanimously gave Redstone Architects the highest rating overall. Redstone Architects is a nationally recognized leader in the design of fire stations and public safety facilities with over 20 years of experience specifically in fire station design. Recent projects include fire stations in Monroe and Southfield and the Marshall Regional Law Enforcement Center. In 2001, Redstone Architects designed the Police Department and Fire Administration headquarters here in Troy. The experience, creativity, and engineering skills of the architects and the construction manager at risk will be combined in the planning phase in conjunction with the expertise of the fire department so as to minimize risk and ensure cost containment. Included with your recommendation is a tentative project timeline, which indicates the construction manager contract recommendation will be presented to City Council for approval in March 2016. So in conclusion, it is recommended to award a contract for architectural engineering services for Fire Station 4 to the highest rated proposer, Redstone Architects Incorporated of Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, as a result of a best value evaluation process for a total not to exceed amount of $201,042.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? I know I read all the documentation that was attached. It's very thorough analysis, and I see Mr. Redstone is here this evening, I think, with his staff. I recognize him from building the police department building behind us, and did a wonderful job with that. But I think you did an outstanding job vetting through the process, and I'm sure it'll be a great job.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from staff? Councilwoman Hoderick.
Just a comment. You referenced the staff offsite when we visited the fire station, and I want to just repeat and emphasize that you don't have to be an architect to walk into that current fire station and know we need to do this. Any residents watching who are wondering, do we really need to make this investment? Does this need to happen? If you stop in there and understand the needs of the station, it's a no-brainer, and it was for us when we voted on it in the budget, and it continues to be, obviously, and appreciate the great work of how you're moving this forward. It's very much needed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would someone like to move the resolution? Councilmember Henderson.
I'd like to move I-5, Standard Purchasing Resolution 8, Best Value Award, Architectural Engineering Services for Fire Station 4, as printed.
Support. Moved by Councilman Henderson and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Pennington that we approve I-5, the Standard Purchasing Resolution 8, which is the Best Value Award and architectural/engineering services for Fire Station number 4. Look forward to the city working once again with Redstone Architects. Thank you for coming this evening. Any further discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. I look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. Is there any items on the agenda that council member wishes to pull? Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
That was down there, right?
That was me.
You guys sound a lot alike, so just keep that in mind, all
She
right?
threw her voice this way, too.
Something happened. All right. Moved by Councilman Henderson, supported by Councilwoman Abraham, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as presented. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. If you were here on a consent agenda item this evening, they have all been approved. Next is memorandums and future council agenda items. There are none submitted this evening. So we will move to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses, and I will call on James Savage, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. And with your permission, and I hope your support, I would like to promote the Community Centre monthly dances, and in particular the one this week on December the 10th. In the spirit of the season, we will be featuring many old Christmas tunes to dance and sing to. Also, celebrate the 100th birthday of Frank Sinatra, we will feature tunes that he made famous, songs that have lasted for many generations. These events are not just for dancers to trip the light fantastic, but for anyone who enjoys music and a friendly social atmosphere. I would like to express appreciation to the staff for the work they put in on these dances, and the sponsors and the support of local businesses like Lukic's restaurant and Tully's Greenhouse. They have supplied door prizes in the past over the last 2 years. Tomorrow, my wife Betty and I will attend a Christmas dinner dance, as we have done for many years, sponsored by the City of Warren. Mayor Fouts usually attends to deliver his Christmas greetings. It was at the last event, while meeting and greeting people, some of whom we hadn't seen for a year or more, and we felt very much at home. We reminisced about the music and what had happened to the people we don't see anymore. We never went to the Greystone Ballroom in Detroit, but it was very obviously a very popular place. The Troy Community Centre Ballroom is, I believe, the finest in the area, and I hope that Thursday night dances will be the city's regular social event for many years to come. So, for all of you here, the audience, and for the watching and listening public, call a friend you haven't seen for a while and maybe meet them down there. It's just a social event. I'm sure anyone that shows up will enjoy it. It starts at 7 o'clock on Thursday, and it's $6 payable at the door. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. I have it on my calendar, and I think other council members do also.
That would be great.
That concludes those that have signed up to speak this evening. Next is council referrals. There are no council referrals this evening, so we will move to council comments. Any comments from council this evening? Councilwoman Abraham.
Just a couple items, just like Mr. Savage has brought forward, the community dances that take place every month. We have a couple events coming up for the Troy Library, which I think our residents ought to know about. There is the Winter Wonderland on Friday at 6:30 p.m., so it's an after-hours event. All ages welcome, lots of activities, a lot of crafts, a lot of arts, and I hear Mr. and Mrs. Claus will be there, so if you didn't catch them at the tree lighting ceremony last week, you got a second shot. And then the second item that the Troy Public Library is sponsoring is the book fair at Barnes & Noble's this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, a lot of arts, crafts, activities. The proceeds from those purchases will go towards the library. I think last year there was over $10,000 raised. So we all have a little bit of holiday shopping to do. Great opportunity to help out the TPL. And you'll get your presents wrapped too, I think. All right, so 2 great events.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? I have a couple comments, if I could. First of all, I don't want to ever forget December 7th is today, and it is Pearl Harbor Day, so I want to make sure that we recognize today as Pearl Harbor Day. It is 74 years, and a day that the United States will never forget, and just reminds me to thank all those that have served our country, and especially today in harm's way, and all the way back to Pearl Harbor Day. But I just want to make sure I recognize that today is Pearl Harbor Day. Hopefully I fulfilled that for a friend of ours in the audience. My second comment is I'm hoping to get some consensus from council this evening for moving us up in our membership with the Troy Chamber of Commerce, because I've been attending quite a few different events with the Chamber recently, and the Chamber always recognizes and puts their platinum members up on the screen. And the platinum members are very instrumental with the Chamber. The Walsh College is in most of the businesses in Troy. And I have to be honest with you, I've always felt somewhat embarrassed to sit in the audience and always be invited by the president and CEO of the Chamber, Ara Topouzian, to sit with him at the table and not have the city of Troy recognized like the other major businesses and contributors in our city. So I did a little research and I found out that we are the lowest on the membership podium for belonging to the Chamber. And we've been asking the Chamber for quite some time now to be more involved with the city, to help us more. And I think it's time that we became a platinum member with the Chamber of Commerce myself. It will cost us a couple $1,000s more a year to be a platinum member, but I think it's well worth the money. I talked to Stephanie Bergeron, the president of Walsh College. She said it's well worth the added expense to be a platinum member. But more importantly, I think the Chamber is important to us. We've been asking them for quite some time to be an integral part of the partnership that we have with the business community. So I could have done this maybe without coming to the council, but I think it's an important thing that we do. And so I'm asking if there's consensus by the entire council to become a platinum member and be recognized by the Chamber every time we have an event. So if I could get the nod of the head from council, I'd like to ask the city manager to contact the Chamber of Commerce and make us a platinum member. And I think I've got some nods here, so.
Do it.
Yeah, I saw him nodding.
Was he nodding off or not?
I wasn't going to say it.
The Chamber has their Christmas luncheon on Thursday, and we're going to have 16 city employees there. So it's going to be a great time to maybe become a platinum member and maybe even be recognized Thursday. So I think that's the most that we've ever had sign up for a Chamber luncheon. So I think it shows that city's interested in participating with the Chamber, and I think it'd be a great thing for us. So, if there are no other council comments, we will move to reports. Anyone on council that wishes to speak in regards to a report that was in the packet this evening? There doesn't appear to be anyone that signed up for comments on items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. There is no closed session request this evening, so we are adjourned. Thank you for coming tonight.